Tumultuous time in real estate. Hi, my name is Roxanne Govari with Pemberley Realty here in San Diego. And yes, we are having some real changes in the real estate market. And I wanted to get in and talk to you about that. So I don't know if you have seen the headlines about real estate commissions and about how our industry is changing. And it certainly is changing. But the question is, how is it changing and how is that going to affect the consumer? So the way that the commissions used to work was that there was an agent that was representing the seller and an agent that is representing the buyer. And the agent that is representing the seller would go to an appointment with the seller and then explain to the seller that you're hiring me to act as your agent, and you're going to pay me a lump sum of money, and I would then turn around and share that money with the agent that represents the buyer, and that's how that agent gets paid. So essentially, the seller would pay both agents, even though the buyer's agent represents the buyer. Well, that's how it used to be. And after the lawsuit that has been out in the works, now things are going to be different. The listing agent or the seller's agent, the agent that's representing the seller, is going to go into an appointment, talk to their potential client, and if they decide to work together, then that agent is getting paid from the seller, directly from the seller. But the seller is no longer going to directly pay the buyer's agent, at least not at the point when the seller's agent and the seller are getting into a contract to work together. So what at least in California, California Association of Realtors, who is the governing body that produces our forms, and I believe, and I know a lot of the agents also believe that they do a great job in terms of producing the forms that standardize our state of how we work, and they make it a lot easier for everybody because everybody gets familiar with these forms. Everybody knows how to read these contracts, and then because they're standardized within our state in industry, then it's easier to know them. It's easier to understand them. It's easier to abide by them, and both parties know what to expect. Both agents on both sides know what to expect and how to work through this together. So those forms now say that the buyer's agent is going to, it's the buyer's agent still can ask the seller to pay for their fees, but not upfront, and the commission is not being shared between the listing agent and the buyer's agent. So the listing agent is signing a contract with the seller. And so listing agent or seller's agent is always the same. And so that agent is going to represent the seller and get paid directly from the seller. And then the buyer is supposed to be then signing a contract with their buyer's agent, and they agree on whatever they agree to in terms of compensation from the buyer to the buyer's agent, and or at the time when they're making an offer of purchase for their buyer to send to the seller, they're going to ask for a commission from the seller to compensate them, or the other scenario that could happen is the buyer could ask the seller for some closing cost credit, which then in turn they can use to pay their agent. So if you think about it, this is an issue of disclosure, not really an issue of oh, okay, the agent is not going to get paid, because we're service providers. What we do is we provide a service to the buyers and the sellers. And if a service provider provides a service, then they need to get paid for their service. And I don't think that the Department of Justice or the people that brought this lawsuit, I don't think that they meant to say that the agents that are working for one party or another do not are not entitled to get paid for the service that they provide. I don't think in any shape or form that would be the message that needs to be sent, that okay, whoever you are and whatever you do, you are doing it for free, and you're not entitled to compensation. I think it's a matter of disclosure, to basically making it very clear who is paying for what and what service it is that they're receiving, and for that service that they're receiving, they need to then turn around and pay the service provider that is giving them the service. So now the next question that comes to my mind is whether or not a buyer even needs an agent, because it could be said, and I know that in some other countries that's the case, that okay, well, maybe I don't even need an agent. A buyer may say, well, I can go to any of these online portals and I can see a house, and I can just pick the house myself. I don't need an agent, and that may be the case, but is it really? I've been in the business for, this is the 24th year, going on to year 25 that I've been in the business, and I've worked with buyers, I've worked with sellers, and number one is that I believe, strongly believe, that we are providing value for both buyers and sellers. And if you look at the history of how it was before agents were involved, basically purchase and transfer of property was basically a wild west kind of a situation. And I don't think that's good for anybody. The consumer that is going to buy or sell, there's a lot of money involved, and there's in some cases, purchasing a property is the biggest investment that somebody makes in their life. So if you're going to buy a car, or if you're buying a purse, you may not need a salesperson. Even then, like, for example, I know when I'm buying shoes, I definitely want to have a salesperson, because it would be almost impossible, or at least not a very good experience, if there's no salesperson to fit the shoe in, and you're probably not going to be very satisfied buying the shoes if there's not a salesperson involved that helps you fit into the shoe. Now imagine a house is a lot more complicated, and if there's no salesperson around to help you in that process, there's so many things that could go wrong. Let me talk about some of the stories that I've had when that actually has happened. So a couple of years ago, I was working with a buyer and a potential buyer, and we looked at a number of homes, and we made a bunch of offers. And unfortunately, the market was very hot, and we were not able to secure the within the offers that we were making. We were not able to secure any of those properties. So this is very common, that in those days, before this ruling came into effect, the buyer did not have to sign a contract with the buyer's agent to basically lock them into working together. So in this case, we also did not, we were not in a contract, so there was nothing to lock us into working together. So one day, now I'm trying to send my potential buyer a couple of other choices, and and my buyer starts to ghost me. And I'm thinking, okay, well, I know exactly what's going on here. But, we've worked together for many months, and I have put in many, many hours to write offers and show property and be available and explain and answer questions. I am not going to take this as an answer. I need that closure to be told in my face that yes, we decided to cheat on you and go and buy from somebody else. And at least if I'm not going to get paid, I do deserve that explanation. So after making a number of calls, finally I get the potential buyer on the phone, and they say, yes, I we went through an open house, and we fell in love with that house, and we decided to go and buy directly from the listing agent because we thought that that would increase our chances of getting the house, which is all fine and dandy. Except that a few years later, there was an electrical issue, and the house burned down. And I am thinking, I'm going back to this, and I am thinking, okay, well, when you are hiring an agent that works exclusively for you, the agent's job is not just to open the door and let you in. The agent's job is also to negotiate the best price, and also to make sure that you inspect the property, make sure to bring in as many professionals as possible to thoroughly go through the house and assure that the house is it's in sound condition. Or if it's not, because when the market heats up, you may not be able to get the seller to agree to fix all the imperfections that the house has, but you may be able to, number one, negotiate some credit that then you can use to fix the house. Or even if that is not a possibility, if the seller is not willing to do that, at least if you are doing the due diligence and you're doing inspections and you get to know the house prior to closing escrow, then you are familiar with the house. You know all the quirks, and you know what needs to be done after the transaction is closed, so that you can make the necessary repairs. And if a knowledgeable agent is not by your side, then you're running blind by yourself. And that is not the best place to be, because the results could end up where my potential buyer ended up losing the house, because that protection may not come from the listing agent. Even though if you think about it ethically, the listing agent also needs to basically help the buyer, but they don't have a fiduciary responsibility to the buyer. Their fiduciary responsibility is to protect the seller. And if the seller did not know about an electrical issue, and this is something that happened either over the years, or maybe the property was older, maybe the electrical circuits started giving in, whatever the reason may have been, the listing agent would not have had the responsibility, the fiduciary, to explain all of that to the buyer, because the buyer was not their client. It's almost like, if you think about it, let's hope that that divorce is not something that a couple goes through, but things happen, and a couple ends up in a divorce situation. And let's say that the couple has a lot of assets, or have kids, or anything in between. At that point, going through the court system and making sure that you get all your rights the way that you're supposed to be getting your rights, without an attorney, going to court is going to not be as pleasant. It's not going to be as pleasant, and there's no guarantee that you're going to get all of your rights without an attorney on each side. Well, the same thing goes true when you are purchasing a house, and if you're going in there without an agent, well, then you end up in the same situation where things might get missed. Now, you may say, well, in that case, I'm going to go and hire an attorney rather than an agent. Well, and that may be fine and dandy. In other states, I can't speak to that. But in the state of California, attorneys are not the ones that actually conduct a real estate transaction. We don't really even have closings like they have on the East Coast. Attorneys are non-existent in a real estate transaction in the state. We do things through escrow and with title, and the agents are the ones that are there to protect the rights and the benefits for their clients, be it a buyer or be it a seller. Therefore, you really want to have an agent, because an agent is the one that's in the trenches every single day. An agent is the one that knows how to navigate through a real estate transaction. An agent is the one that is familiar with the real estate contract and can get you from point A to point B. Yes, if things get ugly, we also need attorneys. But right from the get-go, an agent knows a lot more of what to do rather than an attorney. So, so going back to is an agent necessary in a real estate transaction? I think by all means. I would not go to buy a car without a salesperson that is familiar with the car. I would not go to do a heart surgery on my own heart without an actual heart surgeon. And I think the same is true with purchasing a property without an agent and without representation. That would be just as dangerous as doing all these other highly technical and professional matters, the same as buying or selling real estate. Well, there you have it, folks. Thank you so much for joining me and to discuss real estate commissions and how they will do moving forward. Of course, as you know, this is a moving target. We don't know exactly how this is going to all shake out, but at least we now know that moving forward, the seller's agent is representing the seller, the buyer's agent is representing the buyer, and each party is going to pay their own service provider. And yes, one party could be asking the other party to cover the cost, but in either case, each party is paying their own service provider. Well, if there is any other questions that I can answer for you, I am happy to do so. There's my phone number. You can reach out to me, or if you like to visit my website. I am also on Instagram, and I would appreciate it if you follow me, or if you are on Facebook. There's how you can find me on Facebook. And I always appreciate your business here in San Diego or anywhere in the US. I am there for you and happy to help. And if you are watching this on YouTube, please give me a thumbs up so that when we are posting other content, you can join me. Have a beautiful day.